And hello, movie lovers. So today I actually have a very special guest with me, and I'm going to be interviewing veteran film editors tech startup for a startup company called Looper. I think that's how you actually say it. But his name is Eric Williams, and I can't wait to be able to just chat with him about this new program that he has coming out. And yeah, so let's go ahead. Let's get started. And hey, Alex, how are you doing today?
Hey, John, I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing really good for today and everything. And I just want to say, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you, and it's an honor to have you.
Thanks very much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
You're very welcome. So, my question is this: what got you into doing what you're doing? And then tell me a breakdown of how you started this company and what's the difference between StreamYards and this, because I'm very intrigued with some of the stuff that you have within the software itself.
Yeah, sure. So I come from the film industry. I started work at 18. I didn't go to school or anything. I just started working straight away. I was very lucky in editorial, mainly in commercials, and then got into feature films and worked as an assistant editor and feature editorial on some studio films, but always kind of jumped back and forth between features and commercials and the advertising world. And I did that for close to 15 years. And then when the pandemic hit and we were all working remotely, that was okay. But it was, I grew up in cutting rooms working with directors and producers and other editors and clients, and having kind of real-time in-person collaboration. And it was very difficult to do that online in a meaningful and effective way. There's a lot of asynchronous tools out there where you can upload stuff and get feedback, but it's not personal, it's not direct. We try to do it with the likes of Zoom or Google Meet, and it just wasn't fit for purpose. So that was kind of where it started for me. I was like, damn, there's got to be a way to do this effectively. Kids are doing it on Twitch for no money.
Exactly.
But, yeah, right. Let's adapt that technology to our industry. And I don't come from a tech background. I always loved editing and the craft of editing, but I just kind of had this itch, and I really, really wanted to do it. So it took a few attempts. I then found someone who's now my co-founder, who is from a tech background, and we kind of went about building the platform. We built it in a very bare bones fashion to begin with, and it was just a really basic core functionality. And at that point, we weren't even planning on going commercial with it. It was just kind of something that I could use, shared it with a few people, and it very quickly, the demand was there, and we decided to actually turn it into a company. So that's in a nutshell.
Okay. My question is this though too. Like I listen to podcasts on basically when they have Zoom meetings and stuff like that. To me, the sound quality is not as clear as it would be if you were on another platform and stuff like that. So my thing is this: the thing I like about StreamYards is because of the fact that it has better sound quality. It has everything that I need into one setting to where it doesn't feel like you're talking on a Zoom meeting. And with your software and everything, what's different from Stream? What sets out everything from the other stuff that we have, as far as StreamYards goes, as far as Zoom goes? That's my thing with the features.
Sure. So it's built for real-time collaboration between people working on film. So it's not made for public broadcasting or 1 to thousands of people participants. It's very much a tool for internal collaboration between people, an editor and a director, and maybe a few clients. It's aimed specifically at media entertainment, so the film and television industry, and advertising as well. And it's really meant to be sort of over-the-shoulder review of edit sessions, post-production editing, post-production color, post-production sound. So traditionally, you'd meet up together in an actual post-production facility in London, New York, LA, wherever it might be, and all congregate in a room. What Looper does is it allows you to do that, but online. And so how it differs to the likes of Zoom is that we have very specific feature sets and tools focusing on video and audio quality. So we don't compress streams in any way on our side. There's no compression going on. If you want to stream at 4K high bitrate video with stereo audio, you can do that. There's no server-side compression, and that's obviously incredibly important in the industry we're working. People need to see a true representation of the content they're working on. Remote stakeholders and collaborators need to see that in as best way as possible. And so that's the core the kind of the core focus of the product is maintaining that. There's additional things on top of that in terms of simplifying these workflows, both for the people viewing these streams and connecting to these sessions and collaborating, as well as on the sender side. So for people working in post-production as an editor, we've made it really easy for you to connect your actual high quality video output and stream that to Looper. So not having to do a traditional screen share, but actually bringing in HDMI and SDI signals and being able to stream those out at the correct bitrate, frame rate, resolution.
Would you say that's actually better than OBS, trying to get everything into different settings with OBS compared to doing
it? So I mean, there's two components to it, right? Our huge focus has been on the web application and the collaboration layer on top of it. So people stream to us from OBS or a variant of OBS. You can also use hardware encoders. So the encoding side is something that we haven't placed a huge amount of emphasis on because there are so many tools out there, and particularly people who are working in post-production and post facilities already have hardware encoders that they might be using or have lying on the shelf. And so our focus has been very much on the web application side. That said, we have made life easier for people who are doing streaming to stream to Looper without having to go through a whole bunch of steps or setup or really, we've tried to kind of simplify that as much as possible. So as to better than OBS, I mean, you can use OBS to stream to Looper. You can use a variety of other software as well. And we have gone to efforts on our side to make all of that as simple as possible. Yeah.
Okay. That's just something I was curious about because I know OBS for me is a little too complex, but with your software, it seems like it's pretty much straight to the point, and you based off of what I've seen, and I did some research on it, and I watched an ad for it. It just seems like it has a lot more of a smoother touch to it, and also doesn't overcomplicate something to where people can't learn something.
Exactly.
That's what I got from it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you got that from it because that's the intention and the point.
Right, because. And another thing that I liked about your software, though, is the fact that you can actually edit and everything else under one platform, and you don't need several other things to be able to do stuff with as well, from what I gather.
Yeah, so it's really designed for, over-the-shoulder review of whatever it is you're working on. So, we're not a replacement for editing software as such. People are still going to be editing in Premiere Pro or Final Cut or Media Composer. And what we focused on is adding kind of a collaborative layer on top of that. So I'm an editor. I have a director and a producer who I would normally go into London and sit with. I can't do that or don't want to do that, or maybe a lot of people are doing a hybrid approach where they have a few days in the cutting room and a few days a week remotely. And so we enable people to do that. So to almost integrate into their existing workflows rather than have to change things around completely.
I got you.
And from a workflow perspective, it also opens up, and this is where it gets exciting, is that it means it opens up the ability to work with people from all over the world and not have to travel all the time. We've got some users who might be working on, there's one editor in particular I know who uses it to work on short films with the director in the UK and the director in the US on two different projects. And today he'd be working with the UK director and this afternoon with the US director. And it would be impossible to do that otherwise, right? It's just.
I like that concept though, where basically you can basically share your screen with another director or something, and then be able to collab that way. And you can actually see what he's working on during this same time. It's like, well, can you go on ahead, take this scene out and put this scene in, and then he can see it in live basically of what he's doing versus sending it off and then not knowing what he's cutting out or anything, and therefore having to send it back to that person. This person connected, so therefore the person who's creating it can go on ahead and do this in real time and show them what they're cutting out, what they're editing, and putting it back into that package that person wants.
Exactly, yeah. And that was the problem, I and many other people were facing with asynchronous reviews. You'd have to export it, upload it, send it off, wait for the director or client to watch it, send feedback, send notes, and then do it and misinterpret some of them because that's just how it works. And
right.
But and then I thought, well, when we did this in person, there was none of. I mean, it was kind of there's always a bit of to and fro, but it would be like infinitely faster to go, hey, here's a scene I cut, or here's a section. What do you think about doing, going POV to the shot of the object, back to the reaction, and then the exterior, whatever it might be. I could, there's 10 different ways to cut that, and I want the director to see that and give and give us feedback and say, well, what if we do it here? What if we add an extra few frames into the shot? Trying to do that remotely and send off the thing and wait for feedback is, it's like moving through treacle.
Especially when you're on a deadline, though, too.
Yeah.
It's really time consuming. It's like, okay, when are you going to get done doing my stuff? Because I have a deadline to meet, and because you're taking X amount of time, that deadline's not going to be met. Therefore, you have to have another meeting with all the other people that's involved with the project. Say, look, my stuff is not being sent in through yet. So therefore, now we have to reschedule that meeting. At least with this, you can go ahead and say, well, we took our time. We got everything. Let's take a look and see what we have, and then be able to have maybe 1 or 2 meetings versus being in endless meetings and then endless flights and stuff like that. That is way too much time consuming.
Yeah, and think of the knock-on effect of that, of trying to do that asynchronously, right? Every time you do it, it's easily 10 times longer, if not more, than doing it in real time, and that just has a knock-on effect. It just cannot be done, especially with people you have close working relationships with, and want to get feedback quickly and work on stuff together. There's other interesting use cases for it besides just that kind of straight up, here's a client or director and let's work together, but also with assistant editors and editors.
Exactly.
I feel really sorry for assistant editors coming up now in a remote world where it's difficult to learn the trade and learn the craft of stuff. But doing that in real time and having the editor streaming out their edit to the assistant editor, or vice versa, and getting feedback is really, really valuable.
Right.
And the same applies to sound. Yeah.
Now I have another question. Like, I'm a podcaster. I leave my live streams on StreamYards. So would this be beneficial for a podcaster or a YouTuber in that kind of fashion? Or is it just better to let this be part of something within the entertainment area where you have your producers, your directors, and stuff like that, and let it just be part of that production team?
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing we're focusing on. There's a lot that can be done with the technology, and it's trying to figure out, and that's part of my job, is figuring out what we should do. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do it. And who's our target market, who's our audience, and who do we want to build a product for? So yeah, I mean, if I could do everything under the sun, I would. But it's really focusing, and it's also the industry I come from. I come from media and entertainment in the film industry. And there's a lot more we want to do in that space. There's the problem hasn't been entirely solved yet. And there's constant updates and improvements, and there's a lot more we want to do in that. So we're not looking to replace tools like StreamYard or something like that. Yeah.
Right. But I'm just wondering, like, would this be perfect for someone that wants to leave StreamYards and go into your program, though, too? Because I know some creators like myself are like, well, we're always looking to better ourselves, looking to evolve and not be in one cubicle for a long time, even though it's comfortable to us, but we want to change. We want to evolve. We want to do something different. Would this be something that is perfect for a podcaster or a YouTuber, or is it just better fit for what you just said as far as the movie entertainment business and stuff like that? That's what I was wondering.
It's definitely better fit for that, for the movie and entertainment industry.
Okay.
Kind of, private collaboration between professionals rather than streaming.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just something I was curious about, because I've seen the way that everything was laid out, and I was like geeking out over everything that you have in it. I'm like, this is so awesome to have the operation tools that you have, because some places don't offer editing within the live streams. They don't offer the lighting effects either, or that overshadowing that you mentioned earlier, or anything like that. And you offer all those tools. I think it's just a fantastic thing to have, and it's something new, something fresh that where you can actually. I know that you're not trying to get rid of the editing software or anything like that, but it actually makes the editing process a little bit more, I'm not going to say faster, but it makes it where you can edit on one program, and then maybe you not have to do so much with another program after you put that file into the editing software itself afterwards, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, there's a lot of ways you can use it, and there's a lot, it's trying to figure out what's best for you and your workflow. And we try and do that as well with our blog and our setup guides on the website, and really figuring out what do you want to achieve. Again, like I said, for us, it's really about adding a layer of collaboration on the tools that we're already using, and not necessarily trying to replace them. I do think that there's certainly ways we could replace ancillary tools and asynchronous, upload tools. You don't necessarily need that if you're during the collaboration aspect of a project so we're editing a short film. We could just do it all in real time and export at the end. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm also friends with some indie directors and stuff like that too. Would this be something that would be beneficial for them too, or would it just be something for someone with a bigger organization, someone that has a bigger budget in a sense?
No, so I come from a freelance background. I've worked on big productions and big companies. I've worked on small ones too.
Right.
As we know, the whole nature of the industry amongst crew is to be freelance. So when we built the product and the platform, it's very much aimed at being cost effective to indies and freelancers. We have a free tier as well, which is fine if you're just working with one other person, to really kind of democratize these kinds of workflows and tools. Before we came along, it was prohibitively expensive and the hardware requirements were crazy. And we kind of came in and blew the doors open and went, it doesn't have to be like this. It can be accessible to all tiers and all levels of the industry. So we offer that. At the same time, without trying, we started getting approached by movie studios as well. And so we have a separate tier of the product, which is aimed at the bigger customers. But we'll always, maintain that offering for the freelancers and indies.
Okay. My other question for you is this, what got you into the industry itself?
The film industry?
Yeah, the film industry.
Yeah. So I was fascinated with how movies are made, and I was kind of obsessed about it. And, just how are they put together? And that then quickly, this is when I was young, 9 or 10, and then that quickly developed into, hey, there's this thing called editing. And I was like, I could potentially edit stuff on my computer without, needing to make a movie necessarily. So I started when I was like 12 or 13. I started out on Windows Movie Maker, just editing clips and stuff I'd shot on my phone or whatever. I had a mini DV camera as well, and just completely fell in love with it. I was just like, totally like, this is awesome. So I knew from a pretty early age that's what I, about 13 or 14, I was like, I'm going to be an editor. And that just never really went away. I'm a pretty obsessive person when it comes to stuff that I like. Something I find something I like, I'm latched on, and that love has never gone away. So yeah, by the time I finished high school, I was like straight into it. By that point, I'd done a few kind of internships and was very, had a few lucky breaks. But it didn't come so much from I loved watching films, but I couldn't tell you maybe there's a couple, growing up that I was like, oh, I really love films and I'm going to go and study film. For me, it was about, I don't know, it was just so fascinating as to how
there's just like a click, something just like, I love this whole entire thing of another world, basically, and I want to try to create that world into my own way of viewing it.
Exactly, yeah. And so I didn't come at with I didn't have sort of academic aspirations and I want to study film and dissect them, but I was really just, wanting to get involved in making them, particularly on the post side. So that was it, yeah.
See, that's like the same way with me though. I love writing scripts and stuff like that too, but I also like reviewing films. So, I was like, the very first movie I've seen in theaters was the Batman 1989, and of course Jaws was actually my biggest movie that I watched. I would go and watch that movie every single time and borrow the VHS tape all over and over again. It's like, I want to be part of this world. And I was like, just getting there is one thing, and trying to figure out how to go about doing it. I bet that was also challenging for you as well. It's like, well, how do I go from just doing this on my Windows computer and going into doing it full time? And I bet that was the most challenging thought process, right?
Yeah, and it's that's kind of been a theme throughout my career of going, well, I really want to do X, but I'm starting from ground zero. I had no connection with the film industry. No one in my family had ever worked in film at all.
Same.
So it was very much a thing of, I really want to do this, but then also having kind of, there's so much you don't know, and I was kind of young and naive. I would just email editors. So I'd watch films or TV shows, and I'd be like, I'd go and find who the editor was, and I'd look them up on IMDb, and I'd try and find their contact details, and I'd email them. And sometimes they'd email me back, and I was like, this is amazing. I can speak to these people whose work I like.
Isn't it amazing though? Because you're thinking, okay, well, maybe they might be a little bit more out of reach than what I
Yeah,
think they are. And then as soon as you get like a reply back, you're like, wait, this is happening?
yeah, yeah. It's mad, right? You see, like I grew up in South Africa in Cape Town, and I was like, man, I can contact editors in LA and get responses and get career advice like through my through a computer, just through a keyboard. And and that maybe was also, I was like, well, I'm not going to go and study, I'm just going to go and find a job. And I was very lucky, and I didn't, I emailed post-production companies and went, this is what I've done. And by that point I had like a really small portfolio of like total nonsense work I'd done, on my Windows computer at age 15. And people, it was also very lucky because people gave me a chance, right?
Right, exactly.
Snowballed from there, and then I was like, well, I really want to get into features, but I've never worked on studio features. How the hell do I get into that? And I moved to the UK, I moved to London, and
when you got into the features, did you have to start off with something very small to work your way up
well,
towards that? Because I know, right.
there was this weird thing where I thought I'd have to, and I did do a few small independent, as an assistant editor, independent films, thinking, oh, this is good. I would, I'd get into features. And actually, the first big feature I got was The Danish Girl, directed by Tom Hooper. It was working title at Universal, was a studio. And I got that through a commercial contact. So I was working commercials in London, and an editor I worked with, Melanie Oliver, said, hey, I'm doing this film with Tom Hooper. Do you want to be an assistant on it? And I was like, yeah, great. And she, there was no kind of, the fact that I'd worked on independent films had nothing to do with it. It was purely my work in commercials that got me that. So, and that, and then I kind of, went on to another film, and suddenly that avenue is open to you as well. So it's about, I guess it's about opening doors and networking, but
Exactly.
lucky breaks and people giving you chances, right?
Right. What's like the biggest project that you've ever done that you like, where you was like, oh my god, this is actually happening to me that I never thought this would happen?
I guess the one that stood out, and this is a while ago now, was The Danish Girl with Tom Hooper. I was the second assistant editor on that film. I was 21 or 22, and like a few years prior to that, 5 years prior to that, I went to watch The King's Speech in cinemas.
That's such a great film.
It's a fantastic film. In South Africa, watching The King's Speech twice, going, this is such an amazing film, and like cut forward 4 or 5 years, and I was working with Tom, and working on that project for nearly a year, and in the cutting room and going to previews, and that was like a pinch me moment, I guess.
I can imagine, man. I'm just gonna say this: this program, I'm really amazed by it as well, and the hard work that you've done with it, and then seeing you come up from not having any contacts in the industry itself, and then working your way towards something. I just want to say that's very impactful. That's and very. I'm gonna say it's just very moving to see that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's I don't. Yeah, maybe I don't think about it as much as I should, or acknowledge it. I'm always
It's inspiring because there could be some.
Right. Next week, but yeah.
Because here's the thing: I live in a small ass town. I live in a small town, and I was like this when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was like, "How the hell I know what I want to do, but how do I get there?" Because I'm only subjected to my little small town area that looks like Mayberry from Andy Griffin's show, basically. Yeah. And seeing how the industry is actually evolving into something now, because I can go down to New Orleans, I can actually go to Biloxi, see filming projects and stuff like that. But I love your story where you don't know how you're going to get there, but you're going to try to figure it out to get there. And then you wind up opening these doors. I think it's just fantastic. I think that you have a great thing going for yourself. I just want to say congratulations on your software. And I wish you a lot of success with it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a weird one because I like speaking to you as well now. I'm like, man, I've gone like all in on the software industry, and we're still working in the media and entertainment space, but it's like the flip side of it. It's kind of we're dealing with all sorts of users and big movie studios, but not in the way I was when I was working in editorial. So it's I do miss that editorial side, and it's something I always feel like I'll probably eventually get back to.
Right.
But for
And
now,
also too, when you're inside of something, it feels like it's so small. But when you look at it from the outside of it, where somebody else is looking in, it feels like it's larger than life to them. To us, it might actually feel like it's small to us.
yeah, yeah,
And and that's why I tell people too. I said, "Yeah, I'm a podcaster." He goes, "Yeah, but look at all the things that you're doing." I'm like, "What am I doing?" I'm just, and he goes, "No, you're doing what you love doing,
exactly,
and you're
yeah,
growing." And even though I see myself as something small, other people can see something just like how I see you as something that's big and growing too. So when you're inside this bubble, you're thinking, "This is it. This is nothing." And
yeah,
then
yeah.
when you hear somebody else say, "No, it's not nothing. You're doing something."
Exactly, and
So
that's always
right,
been the thing for me. Like, I've always been drawn to people who do stuff, kind of their own accord, and maybe and it's not always for financial gain, or there's no promise of money at the
right,
beginning, and you do it because you love doing it, and and it's something you can show other people. What you do as well. It's like the thing of
thanks.
you've done an episode, and that episode now lives forever, and you can go back and view it, and that's like you've actually made something, and other
Right.
people are going to watch it, and yeah, I think that's great. It doesn't have to be like for us. It doesn't have to be about your massive reach.
No,
Uh, same with Looper. Like our user base isn't enormous right now, and that might change, but it might not. I still love doing it. But that's
exactly. And I'm just thankful for every single moment that I have and every single guest I have. And just like how you are very thankful for every little thing that comes your way. And just being how humble you are towards it actually opens up more doors too. Because staying humble is probably the hardest thing to do, especially whenever you're climbing through everything and then achieving certain areas in your life too. And
yeah,
trying to find that balance too.
yeah, for sure. My wife keeps me in check. She's pretty good
Mine,
at
mine does too, believe it or not.
that.
But
Cool.
man, it's a pleasure to have you on here. Thank you again for joining me to talk about your software. I think you have a fantastic thing going. I'm actually going to talk to some of my director friends and see if they might want to be interested in this
Yeah, cool.
too, to help you get some business in there too. Because I believe in your product. I think you have a great thing going. It's something new, something fresh. I don't see anybody else doing it. So I'm all for you.
Thanks a lot, John. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, it was great to speak to you.
Great speaking to you too. Do not be shy or anything. Come on anytime you want. Review movies, talk about something. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be anything that you have to promote or anything. I'd like to
Awesome.
have you back on again.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, we should do one about Superbad. When people ask me what my favorite film is, I mean, I've got a few, but like, I
Dude, that is like my favorite movie.
I did. Yeah, I was always like people like this and that, and like these epic films, and I'm like, man, and I've worked, and I've worked on a lot of drama stuff and serious
Sometimes
stuff.
you just need a good laugh,
You
right?
know, like that's my go-to film. I just go to Superbad.
Okay. Well, we'll try and work something out and everything.
Yeah,
My email address and everything is going to be in the links below and stuff like that too. So if you ever just want to be on my show doing a super bad review, let me know. I'll book you on a weekend and we'll do it.
awesome. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, John.
No problem, Alex.
Right, man.
You have a good day. And everyone, have a great and safe weekend. And we'll catch you on Monday at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. I actually have Beth from the Made for Movie TV podcast. We're going to be reviewing Night Shift, the 1980s Michael Keaton movie. So, without further ado, have a great weekend, and we'll catch you on Monday.